Morning comes, but fear remains. The light of dawn broke through the dense canopy of the forest, but it didn't feel like morning. It felt wrong, too quiet, too still. The storm had passed, but the heavy air lingered, as if the forest was holding on to something. Inside the old house, none of us had slept. Lucy sat by the window, her fingers tracing patterns on the fogged-up glass. Her face was pale, and her eyes were swollen from crying all night. She hadn't moved much since Jason disappeared into the forest. Ben clung to his wooden figure like it was his lifeline. He hadn't said a word since the whispers started. Even now, his tiny hands gripped it tightly, his knuckles white against the dark wood. I tried to keep myself busy, pacing the living room, checking the doors, peeking out the windows. But it didn't help. No matter what I did, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us. When our parents finally returned later that morning, I felt a surge of relief until I saw their faces. The family learns the truth. "Where's Jason?" Mom asked, setting down the basket she was carrying. Her voice was calm, but I could hear the edge of panic underneath. The words spilled out of me like a dam breaking. I told them everything. How Jason went out to look for them, how we heard his voice calling us, how we followed it to the shrine. When I mentioned the shrine, Dad's face changed. His jaw tightened, and he looked toward the forest. "You shouldn't have gone near that place," he said, his voice low. "Why?" Lucy asked, her voice breaking. "What's wrong with it? Why didn't you tell us about it before?" Dad hesitated, exchanging a glance with Mom. Finally, he said, "That shrine is dangerous. It belongs to the forgotten spirits, those who were never given peace. Once they take someone, they don't let go easily." Lucy started crying again. "We have to get him back," she shouted. Dad grabbed a flashlight and headed for the door. "I'm going to find him," he said firmly. "No," Mom said, stepping in his path. "You don't know what's out there. We need the elders." But Dad was not listening. "That's my son out there," he said, and then he was gone. A warning from the elders. It wasn't long before the elders arrived. They were old, their faces lined with years of wisdom and stories. Their presence filled the room with a strange calm, but their expressions were grave. When we told them what had happened, one of the elders, a woman with sharp eyes and a voice like gravel, nodded slowly. "You heard his voice calling to you?" she asked. "Yes," Lucy said. "It was Jason. I know it was." The elder shook her head. "It was not him," she said. "The shrine speaks with the voices of those it takes. It lures others into its grasp." "What do you mean?" I asked, my chest tightening. "The shrine is cursed," she said. "Long ago, it was built to honor spirits, but over time, it was forgotten. Now, it's a trap. Those who enter its domain risk losing themselves forever." Lucy's face crumpled. But he's alive. We heard him. We can still save him, right? The elders exchanged glances. Finally, the woman said, "It's possible, but it won't be easy. The shrine feeds on fear and despair. To free him, you'll have to face the shadows, and they will not let him go without a fight." The whispering night. That night, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Even the usual sounds of the forest were gone. Lucy sat on the couch, her arms wrapped around her knees. Ben was curled up beside her, clutching his wooden figure. I sat by the door, staring out into the darkness, waiting for Dad to come back. Then it started. "Help me." Jason's voice, faint and distant. Lucy's head snapped up. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. I nodded, my heart pounding. "Help me." This time it was louder, closer. "We have to go back," Lucy said, standing up. "No," I said quickly. "It's not him." The elder said. "I don't care what she said," Lucy snapped, her voice breaking. "That's Jason. He needs us." Before I could stop her, she opened the door and stepped outside. The forest beckons. The forest was darker than it had been the night before. The moon was hidden behind thick clouds, and the trees seemed to press in closer. "Jason!" Lucy called, her voice trembling. The whisper came again, clearer now. "This way." I grabbed Ben's hand and pulled him close. "Stay with me," I whispered. The air grew colder as we followed the voice deeper into the woods. The ground was slick with mud, and the twisted branches above blocked out what little light there was. Then we saw it, the shrine. The shrine awakens. The shrine stood in the center of a small clearing, its stone faces twisted into expressions of pain and horror. Shadows swirled around its base, moving like smoke. Jason was there. He stood in front of the shrine, his back to us. "Jason!" Lucy cried, running toward him. "Wait!" I shouted, but she didn't stop. Jason turned slowly, and my stomach dropped. His face was pale, his eyes wide and unblinking. "You shouldn't have come," he said, his voice hollow. "Jason, we're here to take you home," Lucy said, reaching out to him. But he didn't move. His eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment I thought I saw fear in them. Then his expression changed, and his voice came again, cold and distant. "They won't let me leave," he said. The shadows attack. The shadows around the shrine began to rise, twisting into long, spindly figures. Their hollow eyes glowed faintly, and their mouths opened in silent screams. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing Lucy and pulling her back. We turned and ran, the shadows surging after us. They moved faster than anything I'd ever seen, their tendrils snapping at our heels. Ben held up his wooden figure, and the shadows recoiled, hissing like steam. But they didn't stop. They swirled around us, cutting off our path. "Get behind me," I shouted, holding out the figure like a shield. The shadows hesitated, their forms flickering, but they didn't retreat. Jason's voice came again, soft and pleading. "Don't leave me." Escape to the house. With a burst of courage, I swung the wooden figure toward the shadows. They hissed and shrank back just enough for us to break through. We ran as fast as we could, the shadows chasing us all the way to the edge of the clearing. When we reached the house, we slammed the door behind us and collapsed on the floor, gasping for breath. The shadows didn't follow. They hovered at the edge of the forest, their hollow eyes watching us. A new plan. The next morning, the elders returned. When we told them what happened, they looked grim. "The shrine has marked you," one of them said. "The shadows will not stop until they have what they want." "What do they want?" I asked. "The living," she said. "The shrine is cursed to take life. If you wish to save Jason, you'll have to face it again. But this time, you must come prepared." Lucy looked at me, her eyes filled with fear and determination. "We have to go back," she said. I didn't answer. Deep down, I knew she was right.